On the silver tray lay an ancient golden token, its surface marked with traces of time. Though it emitted no noticeable fluctuations, it exuded an aura of mystery, faintly revealing a hint of its extraordinary nature. Within the grand pavilion, countless fervent gazes locked onto the golden token. Most of the experts present hailed from various powerful factions, and their purpose was evident. This enigmatic golden token was the reason they had gathered. It was clear that the matter concerning the Second Hall Master was not known only to Mandala. Over the years, the other top-tier forces of Tianluo continent had also conducted their own investigations into the ancient Heavenly Palace. They were well aware of the Second Hall Master's standing within it. Now that his token had surfaced, it was bound to attract endless covetous eyes. The resources and opportunities within the ancient Heavenly Palace were immeasurable. Any major faction that obtained them could potentially rise to dominance, inherit its legacy, and become the new overlord of Tianluo continent. Furthermore, such a rise would elevate them into the ranks of true superpowers within the Great Thousand Worlds. Thus, anything that could grant an advantage in the ancient Heavenly Palace was of unparalleled value and had to be seized at all costs. Above the pavilion, the fourth prince, Xia Hong, narrowed his sharp gaze at the same time. Lady Qinya of Tianya Pavilion, young Pavilion Master Mushan of Hidden Dragon Pavilion, and Jiang Ling of the Sword Immortal Sect all wore solemn expressions. Clearly, what they had been waiting for had finally appeared on the platform. Han Fei chuckled as he raised the silver tray and announced, "The auction for this item begins now. The starting price is 1 million Supreme Spiritual Liquid, with each bid increase no less than another million." The initial price of the token was astonishingly low, far below that of the previous 3 auctioned items. However, no one in the room felt relieved, for they all knew that its value would skyrocket within moments. 2 million. As expected, the moment Han Fei's voice fell, a sharp bid rang out. 3 million. Before the previous bid could even settle, another voice immediately followed. 4 million. One bid after another resounded across the grand pavilion, pushing the atmosphere to a fever pitch. Every faction present had red eyes, determined to secure the token no matter the cost. Under this heated competition, within mere minutes, the price had surged to 10 million Supreme Spiritual Liquid. As the bid reached 10 million, the frequency of new offers gradually slowed. Yet, many bidders still persisted, each backed by at least a first-class force. Minutes passed, and the price climbed to 16 million Supreme Spiritual Liquid. 16 million already. On the pavilion, Mu Chen couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement. The true top-tier forces hadn't even entered the fray yet the price had already reached a terrifying level. 18 million. Just as Mu Chen was marveling at the situation, a sudden chuckle echoed through the pavilion. Instantly, the fiery atmosphere froze as countless gazes turned toward the speaker. It was none other than young Pavilion Master Mushan of Hidden Dragon Pavilion. He wore a calm and amused smile, clearly having observed the auction for some time before finally deciding to act. And the moment he did, he raised the price from 16 million to 18 million, a staggering 2 million increase. The faces of many first-class faction representatives darkened at this, and after a brief hesitation, they begrudgingly sat back, choosing to withdraw from the bidding. Since young Pavilion Master Mu is so generous, my great Xia dynasty can't afford to lose momentum either. 20 million. A lazy voice rang out as Xia Hong joined the fray, casually placing his bid. At this, the remaining factions, who had still been harboring some last-minute hopes, could only sigh in resignation. It was clear now, the battle for the token's ownership would be fought solely among the wealthiest and most powerful forces. 21 million. A soft, charming laugh followed. Lady Qinya of Tianya Pavilion gently covered her red lips with her delicate hand and smiled. "Since you two are so interested, I suppose I'll join in the fun as well." 22 million. Jiang Ling of the Sword Immortal Sect stated coldly, his face devoid of expression. The 4 top-tier forces unexpectedly made their bids simultaneously, immediately pushing the price to a rather frightening level. At this point, the other forces completely gave up any thoughts of competing. Xia Hong's eyes flashed briefly, and after glancing at the other 3, his voice grew a little colder. 25 million. He was determined to secure this token, but the three forces present today would undoubtedly pose a considerable obstacle. He might even have to spend a lot more than expected. However, he wasn't worried about failing today. Compared to their foundation, the Hidden Dragon Pavilion, Tianya Pavilion, and Sword Immortal Sect simply couldn't match the might of the Great Xia dynasty. Mu Shan, Qinya, and Zhang Ling furrowed their brows slightly, clearly realizing that Xia Hong was intent on winning. Even for their forces, 25 million supreme spiritual liquid was no small amount. For a moment, they paused, considering the risks and rewards. Seeing this, Xia Hong couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Those top-tier forces with shallow foundations really thought they could compete with the financial strength of the Great Xia dynasty? How laughable. 28 million supreme spiritual liquid. A calm voice suddenly interrupted the silence, breaking the tension in the room. The entire audience's gaze shifted in shock. They saw the young man on the pavilion, smiling faintly. It was none other than Mu Chun, who had previously secured the remnants of the array. He's offering such a high price. Someone exclaimed in disbelief. 28 million was not an amount that just any force could afford. Qinya, Mu Shan, and the others also looked at Mu Chun with surprise and uncertainty. Xia Hong, stunned for a moment, quickly snapped back to attention. His face turned dark as he glared at Mu Chun with a cold expression. His voice, though filled with menace, was firm. "Kid, this isn't a place for you to cause trouble. If you keep making reckless bids, you'll pay the price." Mu Chun raised his eyelids slightly and said indifferently, "No need for the fourth prince to remind me that as for the 28 million, the great Luo Heaven Domain can certainly afford it." Behind him, Tan Xiao and the others were taken aback by Mu Chen's sudden high offer. After using up some of their supreme spiritual liquid earlier, they only had 30 million left. And now, Mu Chun had just called for 28 million. Though surprised, they didn't speak up. They understood their limited financial power. If they wanted to compete, they needed to show their boldness to deter any interference. The question remained, though, would 28 million supreme spiritual liquid be enough to intimidate Xia Hong? Across from them, Xia Hong's expression darkened as he locked eyes with Mu Chun, filled with cold intent. Although the Great Xia dynasty had deep resources, the amount he could personally mobilize was not without limits. Nearly 30 million supreme spiritual liquid could support the development of a top-tier force and attract countless powerful experts. Xia Hong's gaze flickered, his eyes cold with malice. After a long pause, he took a deep breath and coldly declared, 30 million. The entire pavilion shook, and countless experts stared in shock. They couldn't believe it. 30 million supreme spiritual liquid was enough to purchase several semi-sacred artifacts. And it was said that in some assassin organizations in the Great Thousand Worlds, 30 million could even hire a lower Earth Supreme to take action. The price not only shocked the onlookers, but even Qinya and the others grew solemn, secretly shaking their heads. Many gazes turned to Mu Chun, wondering how he would respond. Under all these stares, Mu Chun, however, showed no hesitation. He calmly said, 31 million. His expression remained unchanged, and no one could discern his true intentions. But only the people behind him, such as Jiu Yu and Tan Xiao, knew that this price was nearly their limit. Even adding another 10,000 would be impossible for them to raise. Whoosh! Xia Hong abruptly stood up, his face contorting in rage. He gritted his teeth, staring at Mu Chun with a look of hatred. His hand gripped the railings so tightly that deep indentations were left. He hadn't expected Mu Chun to play him like this. 35 million. Xia Hong nearly growled the price out, his voice filled with venom. This was the absolute limit of the Great Xia dynasty. Mu Chun locked eyes with the twisted face Xia Hong. His slender hand lightly traced the armrest, his expression calm. But inwardly, he couldn't help but sigh. The Great Xia dynasty really had deep pockets to go to such lengths. He was starting to feel the pressure. The 35 million supreme spiritual liquid, perhaps even with their current status in the Great Luo Heaven Domain. Their annual income couldn't match that amount. So, he gently shook his head, deciding to give up. "We'll think of something later," Jiu whispered. Even if Xia Hong obtained the token, it didn't necessarily mean he could take it away. Mu Chun nodded. There was no other choice. Why not add more? Seeing Mu Chun give up, Xia Hong twisted his face into a sneer, full of sarcasm. A small great Luo heaven domain dares to compete with my great Xia dynasty. You truly don't know your place. Juyo's pretty face turned cold, about to stand up, but Mu Chen stopped her. There was no need for a fight in a place like this. Xia Hong snorted, his gaze shifting toward Han Fei on the platform. His voice was cold. Aren't you going to announce it? Now that the price of 35 million had been set, who could rival it? Hearing this, Han Fei quickly nodded, about to announce the end of the auction. However, just as he opened his mouth, a soft, charming voice, like pearls falling onto a silver tray, suddenly echoed through the pavilion. It was like a thunderclap, stunning everyone present. Wait, I bid 45 million. Silence. The entire pavilion fell into a deathly silence. Xia Hong's eyes seemed momentarily stunned by the price. Even Mu Chen was caught off guard. Who was this person who just raised the bid by 10 million supreme spiritual liquid? Did they think this was beans? Who raised it? All eyes in the pavilion seemed to frantically search the crowd. Moments later, countless gazes suddenly shot toward Mu Chen's location, noticing the stairs. Mu Chen was taken aback. He quickly turned his head and saw, to his surprise, a stunning girl in a black robe standing behind him. She was holding a spirit fruit with her jade hand, nibbling on it. Her lively, beautiful eyes seemed filled with ethereal grace, a beauty that was breathtaking. As she chewed the fruit, her sparkling eyes met Mu Chen's stunned face. She quickly waved her small hand, swallowing the fruit in her mouth, and grinned cheerfully. Look, Mu Chen, we meet again. In the silence of the pavilion, under the countless disbelieving gazes, Mu Chen was stunned as he looked at the girl in the black robe before him. Her smile was sweet, her bright eyes captivating, especially those eyes, filled with spiritual energy that left an unforgettable impression. You're Lin Jing? After a moment of shock, Mu Chen finally regained his senses. He looked at the girl who seemed familiar, unable to believe what he was seeing. Lin Jing. She was the girl Mu Chen had met on his way to the Tianluo continent, passing through Shan continent. Her identity was that of the little princess of the martial realm, the legendary martial ancestor, whose name echoed throughout the great thousand worlds. Was her father. Mu Chen never imagined that after so many years, he would run into her again. Here, after a moment of stunned silence, he couldn't help but laugh, the sound tinged with nostalgia. Back then, when they first met, he hadn't even formed his supreme Dharmakaya. Now, he had already reached half-step 9th grade. What are you doing here? Mu Chen couldn't hide his surprise. Lin Jing smiled brightly. I heard the ancient heavenly palace appeared on the Tianluo continent, so I came to join the fun. And I remember you said you'd be coming here. I was getting bored at home, so I decided to sneak out. She curiously looked around the surroundings. But we're really fated. We always run into each other at auctions. As soon as the word auction was mentioned, Mu Chen snapped back to reality. He looked around and saw countless gazes locked on Lin Jing. Their eyes were filled with astonishment, especially after seeing the shocking price she just bid. Humph, where did this girl come from, causing trouble here? From the opposite side of the pavilion, Xia Hong also regained his senses and locked his gaze on Lin Jing. When he saw her stunning beauty and ethereal aura, his eyes showed an uncontrollable admiration, quickly turning into desire and lust. To him, both Lin Jing and Juyo were rare beauties. One was delicate and lively, the other cold and proud. Such beauty was like poison to someone like him, who was infatuated with beautiful women. It was fatal. Ahem, you should cancel the price you just shouted, Mu Chen hurriedly reminded Lin Jing. 45 million supreme spiritual liquid, such a terrifying amount, would probably drain the entire Great Luo Heaven domain. Moreover, without knowing the exact function of that mysterious token, paying this price clearly wasn't worth it. Do you think this is just any place? You raise the price when you feel like it, and cancel it when you feel like it? However, before Mu Chen could finish his words, Xia Hong sneered coldly. When his gaze shifted to Lin Jing, he smiled faintly and said, "Why don't you join me to watch the auction? As for the previous matter, no one will care about it." Lin Jing blinked her lively, beautiful eyes and asked, "Will you help me pay the 45 million supreme spiritual liquid?" Xia Hong's smile froze on his face. He cleared his throat and said, "That token is not worth 45 million supreme spiritual liquid. What you said before, I can pretend I never heard it. Lin Jing pouted her rosy lips and said, "Who's playing with you? I bid 45 million, but if you can't outbid me, then stop talking nonsense." The entire room was stunned. They looked at Lin Jing. Was she really going to bid 45 million? But could she even afford it? Qinya from Tianya Pavilion and Mu Shan from Hidden Dragon Pavilion also looked surprised, clearly not expecting the situation to escalate this far. After being publicly rebuffed by Lin Jing, Xia Hong was visibly embarrassed. His eyes darkened, and he said coldly, "Don't get too arrogant, young lady. Do you really have 45 million supreme spiritual liquid to offer?" Before Xia Hong could finish speaking, his voice was suddenly cut off. His gaze grew dazed as he stared ahead. There, Lin Jing suddenly raised her hand, and a jade bottle flew out. The bottle tilted, and with a loud rumble, rivers of spiritual energy rushed out, instantly filling the entire hall with overwhelming power. Countless people stared, dumbfounded, at the rivers suspended in midair with their sharp eyes. They could easily tell that these rivers were made of supreme spiritual liquid. Moreover, the quality of this liquid seemed to be quite high. As the jade bottle continued to pour out streams of liquid, no one could doubt anymore. This seemingly delicate girl could indeed take out 45 million supreme spiritual liquid. Qinya and the others from Tianya Pavilion also looked solemn. They exchanged deep glances with Lin Jing. To be able to carry such a massive amount of supreme spiritual liquid, her background was surely not simple. After all, no ordinary force could possess the wealth to casually take out 45 million supreme spiritual liquid. With a rushing sound, the rivers of spiritual energy flowed, and Lin Jing made a casual gesture. The jade bottle absorbed all the supreme spiritual liquid back in. She then glanced nonchalantly at the stunned Xia Hong and smiled. "Now, is my bid acceptable?" Seeing Xia Hong's sour expression, Lin Jing added, "Of course, you can still raise the price. Maybe if you raise it, I'll have to give up." Xia Hong's face turned pale. Although Lin Jing said that, her eyes clearly showed a spark of excitement, indicating that she had no intention of backing down. With her boldness, it seemed she would go all the way, no matter how much Xia Hong raised the price. Moreover, could he really raise the price? 45 million was already a daunting figure, and even if his older brother were here, he would hesitate. The great Xia dynasty was indeed powerful, but even they couldn't easily afford this kind of extravagance. The crowd's gaze was now firmly on Xia Hong, many with mocking expressions. Before, Xia Hong had used his wealth to suppress others, but now, here was someone who outbid him, making him hesitate to even raise the price. Under all those stares, Xia Hong's anger surged. He wanted to retaliate harshly, but when he thought of the terrifying price and the consequences that would follow, he ultimately slumped back into his seat, his hands clenched tightly, creaking with tension. Seeing Xia Hong in such a sorry state, Lin Jing leisurely turned to Mu Chun and said, "I made sure to bring enough money with me this time." It seemed she still remembered the time when she had hurriedly fled, penniless, and had to rely on Mu Chen's help. Mu Chun and the others exchanged looks and then smiled wryly. To spend 45 million supreme spiritual liquid in one go, that was some real extravagance. But upon thinking of Lin Jing's background, they couldn't help but let it go. The martial realm is a renowned superpower in the Great Thousand Worlds. Its strength is so immense that even if all the forces on the Tianluo continent were combined, they would still fall short. After all, the master of the martial realm is a genuine heavenly supreme, and even among the peak existences in the Great Thousand Worlds, this martial ancestor remains unfathomable and immeasurable. With such a formidable father, it's only natural that Lin Jing, no matter how reckless she is, would be tolerated. While Mu Chun and Lin Jing were talking, Han Fei, who had been on the tower, finally came to his senses. He looked at Lin Jing as if she were some kind of deity. It was likely the first time in all these years that he had seen someone so willing to spend money lavishly. Cough. This young lady bid 45 million. Is there anyone willing to bid higher? Han Fei looked around and asked loudly. His question, however, only drew a series of mocking glances. 45 million. Even Xia Hong had slunk away in shame. Who would dare to challenge that price? Seeing those looks, Han Fei felt a bit awkward. He quickly said, "Since no one else is bidding, This token belongs to this young lady. With a wave of his hand, someone swiftly brought the token to where Lin Jing was. Of course, for security, dozens of guards followed closely behind. Everything proceeded smoothly. After Han Fei counted the enormous amount of supreme spiritual liquid, his hand still trembled slightly as he respectfully handed the golden token to Lin Jing. Lin Jing casually accepted it, then tossed it carelessly in the air. Her nonchalant gesture made many people's hearts skip a beat. That token was worth 45 million supreme spiritual liquid. What if it broke? But just as they were about to panic, Lin Jing did something even more astonishing. After playing with the token for a moment, she beamed with a smile and tossed it to Mu Chen. Here, last time, you helped me buy the heavenly fire jade marrow. So this time, I'll buy something for you to refusing, or I'll just throw it away. Countless people's faces twitched. Heavenly fire jade marrow? That thing wasn't worth more than 10,000 at most. But this mysterious token, worth 45 million supreme spiritual liquid? A one-for-one trade? Many powerful figures exchanged glances, then took a deep breath. They too wanted to have such an extravagant friend. Amidst the incredulous gazes, Mu Chen was also stunned by Lin Jing's actions. Initially, he had considered refusing, but after hearing her last sentence, he could only smile helplessly. He thought for a moment, then decided not to be stubborn. Instead, he solemnly accepted it. Thank you. I'll remember this favor. Seeing Mu Chen's straightforwardness, Lin Jing smiled warmly. There was a hint of admiration in her eyes. Normally, when others learned of her identity, they would try to flatter and please her. But Mu Chen hadn't done any of that. She could tell that he treated her simply as Lin Jing, not as the little princess of the martial realm. So, when she heard Mu Chen say he would remember her favor, she didn't find it laughable, even though, given her status, any favor would be of little value in her eyes. All right, I don't have anywhere to go for now. Can you take me in for a bit? Lin Jing said with a smile. Mu Chen nodded, smiling as well. He then completed the transaction for the remaining array that had been auctioned, and, with Lin Jing and the others in tow, leisurely left under the watchful gazes of countless eyes. On the tower, Xia Hong's gaze darkened as he watched Mu Chen and the others leave. After a long pause, he turned his head slightly and said expressionlessly, "Investigate that girl's identity. Also, keep an eye on them. To think they would try to take something from this prince. They truly don't know the danger they're in." The auction in West City eventually came to a close. However, after the event, the entire city was left in a state of shock. All the major forces were stunned by the final price of 45 million supreme spiritual liquid, and they speculated endlessly about the identity of Lin Jing, who had made such a bid. Even though the auction was over, some sharp-eyed individuals knew that the matter of the golden token would not fade so easily. It was too attention-grabbing, and with so many powerful figures gathered in West City, a chaotic mix of dragons and snakes. Though the people from the Great Luo Heaven Domain had successfully purchased it, that didn't necessarily mean they were the true owners of the token. Although the Great Luo Heaven Domain is said to hold considerable weight in the Northern Domain, it still doesn't have much fame across the entire Tianluo continent. In West City, however, several top-tier forces from the Tianluo continent are already present. Among them, Xia Hong and his companions are some of the most outstanding young talents on the continent. These prodigies are nearly invincible. As long as the leaders of the major top forces don't make an appearance, for Mu Chen, who hails from the Great Luo Heaven Domain. While quite remarkable, he is still only a half-step 9th grade. When compared to someone like Xia Hong, there is an evident gap. Therefore, when various forces learned that the token had ultimately fallen into the hands of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, they were not disappointed. On the contrary, they were eager with anticipation. They could foresee that numerous factions would set their sights on Mu Chen and the others, and once a chaotic battle broke out, they might just find an opportunity to seize the token. As for Mu Chen and the others, no one really cared. The various forces, they believed that a man without guilt is guilty merely for possessing something precious. The Great Luo Heaven Domain would likely suffer heavy losses this time. Thus, beneath the bustling West City, dark currents swirled, like a brewing storm. In a secluded courtyard in West City, the gates were tightly shut, and a spiritual array appeared above the yard, with spiritual lights swirling, blocking any external prying eyes. Mu Chen stood in the courtyard, gazing at the sky beyond with a smile. I suppose countless eyes in West City are watching us right now. Behind him, Gio nodded slightly and said calmly, "It seems it won't be easy to take the token from here. In the end, it's because others don't think we're significant enough." Mu Chen shook his head. The Great Luo Heaven Domain had little renown in the Tianluo continent, and among their group, only Jiuyo, a 7th grade supreme, might warrant some attention. As for him, a half-step 9th grade, he might simply be ignored. "It seems that what I bought has caused some trouble for you all." Lin Jing, who was playfully teasing a small bird in the courtyard, looked up at the two and smiled brightly. "If you need help, don't hesitate to ask." Mu Chen glanced at her, narrowing his eyes. There was almost no trace of spiritual energy fluctuation around Lin Jing. It was clear she had some treasure that concealed her spiritual power, preventing others from detecting her true strength. However, when he first met Lin Jing, she had been refining her supreme dharmakaya with the materials they gathered. Now, years later, with her status as the little princess of the martial realm and the constant guidance of her heavenly supreme father, Mu Chen suspected that her strength might not be weaker than his. Moreover, given the deep foundation of the martial realm, Lin Jing likely had countless life-saving treasures. Based on Mu Chen's guess, even a true Earth Supreme would find it difficult to eliminate her. Yet, despite having such a powerful ally, Mu Chen smiled and shook his head. "If we can't even protect this token, it's better to hand it over willingly and avoid causing trouble." His youthful face remained calm, without a hint of panic or worry in this situation. His composed demeanor made Lin Jing nod slightly, feeling a sense of admiration and no wonder his mother had given Mu Chen such a high evaluation. At the time, she had been somewhat dismissive, but after these years, it seemed that Mu Chen was indeed a little different from others. "So what's your plan?" "Given this situation, it seems that once we leave West City, we'll face blockades from many forces." Jiuyo asked. Mu Chen lowered his eyelids slightly and said faintly, "If that's the case, then we'll wait. Since they look down on our Great Luo Heaven Domain, let them come and try. Right now, we need to set an example." As night fell across the land, Mu Chen sat quietly in his room, his spiritual energy flowing. The spiritual energy of the world continuously poured into his body. After a while, he slowly opened his eyes. With a wave of his sleeve, 2 objects appeared before him. One was a broken array, the other, a token. These were the 9 dragons devouring immortal array and the mysterious token that Mu Chen had obtained at the auction. Mu Chen gazed at these 2 items, his brow furrowing slightly. Then, he took the broken array and examined it. The complete form of this array was a true master-level spiritual array. Once deployed, even a superpower house at the Earth Supreme level would find it difficult to break through. The Spirit Array Grandmaster realm is the ultimate goal that every Spirit Array master dreams of. Once one reaches that level, their mastery of Spirit Arrays can barely be considered complete. Of course, the true pinnacle is that legendary Grandmaster level. It is an existence that rivals the Heavenly Supreme, a terrifying entity. However, such figures are likely extremely rare in the entire Great Thousand Worlds. What makes Mu Chen feel somewhat proud is that his mother is one of them. I wonder how Mother is doing now. And what about Sister Lingxi? After we parted ways at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, there has been no news from her. She said she was looking for Mother's whereabouts, but I don't know how things are going. Mu Chen rubbed the ancient broken array, his thoughts wandering. But in the end, he took a deep breath and suppressed the emotions in his heart. Though he was now half a step into the 9th grade, it was still not enough. As his strength advanced, he could vaguely feel the immense power of the mysterious clan behind his mother. This power was so great that even his mother, who had entered the Grandmaster level, was somewhat wary of it. While part of this caution was to protect him and his father, it was still enough to show how formidable that clan was. Mu Chen pressed his lips together, then focused his gaze on the broken array in front of him. Closing his eyes slightly, his spiritual energy surged in his hands and gradually flowed into the ancient, shattered scroll. Boom! As his spiritual energy permeated, a thunderous sound seemed to erupt in Mu Chen's mind. Brilliant light exploded, and the scene immediately shifted. On top of a mountain stood a white-haired elder, hands clasped behind his back. His sleeve fluttered, and an overwhelming wave of spiritual seals poured out like a tide, merging with the void. They formed intricate spiritual energy patterns that caused the surrounding world's spiritual energy to tremble. The spiritual seals gradually began to form into an array. The white-haired elder flicked his finger, sending 9 rays of light shooting out. These rays faintly emitted a dragon's roar. The 9 rays entered the massive array, and when their light faded, the true form emerged. To everyone's shock, they revealed 9 authentic dragon bones. The 9 dragon bones formed the 9 central positions of the array. As they entered, the spirit array seemed to come to life. Torrential spiritual light swept through the heavens and earth, and the vast spiritual power gathered around the dragon bones. Eventually, the spiritual energy solidified into flesh and blood, transforming the 9 dragon bones into 9 true giant dragons. However, these dragons were not made of flesh and blood, but instead formed purely from spiritual energy. Even so, the terrifying pressure emanating from the 9 dragons was overwhelming. Whoosh! As the 9 dragons devouring immortal array was fully formed, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the mountain. A mighty aura surrounding them. It was a super strong expert who had reached the Earth's supreme level. The white-haired elder who had set up the array merely glanced indifferently. Then, he flicked his finger again, causing the 9 dragons to roar toward the heavens. In an instant, 9 dragon breaths surged forth like a rainbow, slicing through the sun, tearing through the void, and directly striking the Earth's supreme expert. Boom! In just one clash, the Earth's supreme expert was sent flying, blood spraying from his body, his spiritual energy pressure plummeting, clearly suffering heavy injuries. The scene ended, and a surge of information flooded into Chen's mind. He took a deep breath, his eyes filled with shock. He murmured to himself, such a powerful and complex spirit array. He shook his head, marveling. From the information he had received, though incomplete, he could still glimpse the essence of it. The 9 dragons devouring immortal array was not only vast in scale, but also required a central item, namely, the dragon bones that had appeared earlier. This array connected with the dragon bones, utilizing their energy to form dragons with spiritual power. The combined force was enough to rival a true Earth Supreme. However, the scroll is broken, and as it says, even if one could study and comprehend it, they would likely only be able to set up the 4 dragons array. It's far from the 9 dragons array. Chen sighed with regret, but soon let go of it. If this array were in its complete form, his current mastery of spirit arrays would certainly not be enough to succeed in setting it up. On the other hand, with this broken array, if he studied it carefully, there might be a chance of success. It seems I need to collect some dragon bones as backup, Chen muttered to himself. According to the formation, it appeared that the stronger the dragon bone owner's power was in life, the more powerful the 9 dragons slaying immortal array would become. However, at present, he clearly did not need highly advanced dragon bones, so collecting them wouldn't be too difficult. With this thought, Chen nodded in satisfaction. His gaze shifted, and he looked toward the ancient and mottled golden token. The ancient and mottled golden token quietly floated before Chen's eyes. The light shone upon it, but no reflection could be seen. It felt as though the token was a black hole, exuding an air of mystery. Chen stared intently at the golden token. He extended his hand, letting it fall into his grasp. His fingers brushed the surface of the token, and the ancient inscription of second remained somewhat faded but still radiated an inexplicable authority. Chen's expression grew solemn as he circulated his spiritual power, attempting to probe the token. However, his efforts yielded no results. The token remained motionless, as if it were an ordinary object. Let's see if I can refine it. Having failed to probe it, Chen hesitated for a moment before dripping his blood onto the token. His spiritual power then transformed into blazing flames, wrapping around the token in an attempt to refine it. However, the golden token lay motionless within the spiritual flames. The blood he had dripped onto it merely formed liquid droplets that rolled over the surface without seeping in. It seemed as though the token was surrounded by a powerful, indescribable barrier, one that prevented anything from infiltrating. After the spiritual flames had burned for a while with no result, Chen sighed, somewhat disappointed. As expected, this item was not easy to investigate. However, despite the lack of success, Chen didn't feel distressed by the effort, for the more difficult it was to probe, the more mysterious and important it seemed. If he could truly uncover its secrets, its value would surely surpass that of the 45 million supreme spiritual liquid. The spiritual flames dissipated, and the golden token fell to the ground. Chen reached out and grasped it, gently rubbing it as his eyes fixed on it. He faintly sensed a subtle, nearly imperceptible fluctuation from the token, but the sensation was so weak that he couldn't immediately discern its source. However, based on this, Chen was certain that this item belonged to the second hall master of the ancient heavenly palace. The token exuded a strong, ancient pressure, one that lingered like a shadow, despite being only a trace of the years it had endured. It was enough to make Chen feel a sense of unease. Only someone of hall master rank from the ancient heavenly palace could have left such an impression. It seems I'll have to keep this in hand and study it carefully. Chen decided to set it aside for now. After all, there was no urgency. Perhaps once he entered the ruins of the ancient heavenly palace, he would be able to learn the token's exact purpose. He believed that by then, it would not disappoint him. Now, I should focus on the 9 dragons slaying immortal array. With that thought, Chen stopped dwelling on the token. He tucked it away and took out the incomplete scroll of the 9 dragons slaying immortal array, starting to study and simulate it, hoping to comprehend it and successfully set up this incomplete master-level spiritual array. For the next day, Chen remained in the courtyard, focused on simulating the 9 dragons slaying immortal array. He didn't rush to secretly leave West City, as he knew it would be impossible to slip away unnoticed under so many watchful eyes. Moreover, Chen didn't wish to take such a route. During this period, aside from Elder Bai and Lin Jing, no one else left. Elder Bai had been tasked by Chen to collect some dragon bones from treasure shops within the city, while Lin Jing, unable to stay idle, paid no mind to the fact that she was a walking treasure trove in the eyes of many. She still wandered freely every day. Surprisingly, despite the countless strong individuals eyeing her, no one dared to take action, clearly wary of the mysterious background that Lin Jing had. And so, this peaceful situation continued until the next day. On the second evening, Chen sat in the stone pavilion in the courtyard. A chessboard was laid out on the stone table, and he was casually playing chess with the Lord of 9 Nether. Our place has become the most watched spot in all of West City now. 9 Nether glanced outside the courtyard. Though the past 2 days had seemed calm, anyone could sense the turbulent undercurrents. More and more eyes were watching, filled with predatory intent, and Chen nodded with a smile. If they want to drag this out, let them. It just gives me more time to refine the 9 dragons devouring immortal array and wait for our great Luo Heaven Domain forces to arrive. 9 Nether gave a slight nod. That subordinate of yours still hasn't returned, Lin Jing remarked casually as she played with a spirit rabbit she had somehow acquired. Her delicate, beautiful face lifted slightly in a seemingly offhand manner, but her words carried a hint of deeper meaning. 9 Nether froze for a moment, her expression shifting slightly. It was only then that she realized, at this time of day, Elder Bai should have long since returned. Given his personality, he would never be one to delay. She turned to look at Chen, but his expression remained calm. Only his eyes narrowed slightly, a dangerous glint flashing within them. Looks like someone is finally making a move, he murmured to himself. Just as Chen finished speaking, a burst of laughter wrapped in powerful spiritual energy pierced through the air, thundering like rolling lightning across the entire city. The sound easily penetrated the courtyard, despite the protective spirit arrays surrounding it. Haha, esteemed guest from Great Luo Heaven Domain. Your subordinate is currently a guest at this prince's residence. Would you be willing to come over for a chat? The booming laughter echoed across the heavens. The voice belonged to none other than the 4th prince of the great Xia dynasty, Xia Hong. He made no effort to conceal his words. Everyone in the city heard him clearly. Immediately, various factions stirred. Had Xia Hong finally decided to make his move against the people of Great Luo Heaven Domain? This bastard. Nine Nether's face darkened with fury. He's cautious, Mu Chen said flatly. He had expected Xia Hong to launch a direct assault, but the prince had chosen a different approach instead. Clearly, he feared that Mu Chen had set up multiple spirit arrays over the past few days, giving them a strategic advantage. My lord, what should we do? Tan Xiu asked, looking to Mu Chen for instructions. Mu Chen rose to his feet, his tall, lean frame straight as a spear. He lifted his gaze toward the source of the voice and chuckled. After 2 days of waiting, the chicken has finally arrived. And if we don't chop off the head of this chicken, how will we intimidate the others? Let's make this fool the stepping stone for Great Luo Heaven Domain's name on Tianluo continent. As his words fell, his figure transformed into a streak of light, shooting toward the sky. Nine Nether, Tan Xiu, and Stone King immediately followed, their murderous intent surging. This is going to be interesting. I'd like to see how he, with just half a step in a 9th grade supreme, plans to go up against someone who has truly stepped into that realm. Lin Jing murmured with a bright smile, a flicker of excitement flashing in her eyes. Without hesitation, she too transformed into a streak of light, swiftly following. As Mu Chen and his group burst out of the courtyard, countless figures suddenly shot into the sky across West City, all heading towards Xia Hong's location like a tidal wave. It was clear to everyone that the storm that had been brewing for 2 days was finally about to erupt today. But once the dust settled, would Great Luo Heaven Domain still be able to keep hold of that mysterious token? In 3 separate locations within West City, Lady Qinya of Tianya Pavilion, young Master Mu Shan of Hidden Dragon Pavilion, and Jiang Ling of Sword Immortal Sect all fixed their gazes on the soaring lights from Mu Chen's direction. Their eyes flickered with intrigue. That Mu Chen from Great Luo Heaven Domain is certainly bold. He dares to move so decisively. But while Xia Hong may be detestable, he's no pushover. This should be quite the spectacle. The 3 exchanged amused smiles before flicking their sleeves and rising into the sky. Behind them, flashes of light followed like lightning. Figures filled with immense spiritual energy. None of them weaked. In an instant, the entire West City was set ablaze with anticipation. At the heart of West City, within a heavily fortified mansion, a grand training ground sprawled inside. Seated upon a luxurious throne, Xia Hong leisurely enjoyed the embrace of beautiful women pouring him wine, a picture of indulgence. Behind him, over a dozen shadowy figures stood tall, their overwhelming spiritual energy distorting the very air around them. That a figure at the forefront of the group stood out the most. An elderly man clad in a gray robe that a chilling aura emanated from his entire being. And even the spiritual energy radiating from his body carried an extreme coldness. On one of the pillars of the training ground, iron chains extended downward, binding a figure. Elderby, spiritual energy runes flickered across his body, forming a seal that locked away his internal spiritual energy. Duke Wang, do you think that brat will dare to come? Xia Hong idly twirled a crystal goblet in his hand before asking with a mocking smile. Behind him, the gray-robed elder let out a sinister chuckle. Whether he comes or not, the outcome is already decided. That token is not something a mere Great Luo Heaven Domain can claim. Hearing this, Xia Hong smiled in satisfaction. He then drained his cup in one swift motion before looking up at the sky, which had suddenly become lively. Figures began appearing in midair, gazing down upon the training ground from above. So, he really came. Hold of him. Xia Hong smirked as he clapped his hands, his gaze fixed on the sky. At that very moment, as his voice fell, beams of light flashed across the sky above the training ground. Under the countless watchful eyes, several figures emerged. Leading them was none other than Mu Chen. As he appeared, Mu Chen cast a brief glance at Xia Hong. Then, with a flick of his finger, a streak of spiritual energy shot out, severing the chains that bound Elderby. The spiritual energy wrapped around him, pulling him back to safety. Xia Hong did not intervene. He merely watched with a smile as Mu Chen rescued Elderby before turning his gaze toward him. His eyes gleamed with amusement as he said, "Leave the token and the 2 beauties, and I will let you walk out of West City alive." Mu Chen responded with a light chuckle. His gaze locked onto Xia Hong as his laughter echoed. "Mind if I borrow your head for a moment?"